Welcome back to our second Q&A video here on this channel. I know I called the first one an FAQ video because I was just answering questions I already had, but this one's answering questions that y'all have asked in the comments, so I'm still calling it the second one because this is answering questions. And I'll do these periodically. I'm not sure how often yet. It'll just depend on the volume of comments and questions. But we'll get started with this one today. But thanks to everyone who left comments with questions. I think it's kind of fun because I know this is content today that you actually want to see rather than just me trying to guess. So hopefully it was fun for you all as well who participated. And for those of you who didn't, or if you have more questions, go ahead and leave some your questions in a comment below here, and we'll get to them in the next video. Okay, so my first question for this video comes from Deborah Dickinson. Deborah actually sent me a message and said it was a private question, but I told her I was going to go ahead and put it on here publicly anyways. So Deborah wants to know what's with a mountain man primitive look. I haven't shaved lately. So actually, real quick backstory, I don't like shaving much. And I tend to trim it periodically. I trim it less frequently in the winter when it's cold, and more frequently in the summer when it's hot and itchy. But what happened was I had this electric, cordless trimmer, rechargeable trimmer, and I know I had the cord for it in September in Wyoming last year, and somewhere along the way, over the winter when I went to use it and charge it up, I didn't have the cord anymore. So somewhere with all the travels, I managed to lose the cord to recharge the thing, and if we had enough charge, I was able to use it a time or two, and then that was it. So it's been on my shopping list to get another razor, so better take care of that now, I guess. Well, here we go. Time to get trimmed up a little bit. Alright, now with that project done, we'll get back to the video and answer the rest of your questions. Okay, so continuing on, Deborah also asks, I'm wondering what your favorite place has been so far as a nomad, and if you wouldn't mind sharing a few places you still hope to visit. That's tricky because I've been to some really great places, but there's also a lot I still want to get to. So, I think one of my favorites so far is going to go down as Sedona. Outside of Sedona, not the town itself. The town itself is too crowded. Sedona is just gorgeous, the area around there, the Red Rocks. That's really cool. So that's definitely on the top of my list. As far as places I still want to visit, I've only barely been to California. That was actually since I've been on the road, but it was just kind of a quick in and out sort of a thing. I've been to visit Slab City, and I've been over to Blythe, a number of times now for supplies when I was in Ehrenberger Quartzite, but that's pretty much it. So I definitely want to do some more exploring in California. And we did a quick run up to the northwest last fall into Oregon. That was the first time I've been to Oregon, so I think I'd like to go back and explore Oregon a bit more, and maybe explore Washington a bit more. I've spent some time there in years gone by, but not explored it as much as I might like to. Otherwise, the southeast, I've been to Florida years ago, down the East Coast, but there's parts of the southeast I haven't yet been to yet either, so I gotta do that. So that's kind of it for, I guess, for that. Okay, and Kathy Wright asks, I know you have family, grandchildren that you visit with, but do you start to miss a solitude when you have been in the city for any length of time? I suspect I would. Absolutely. When I first got back up there in March, about 2 months ago now, it was, wonderful seeing family and playing with the grandkids, and after the first about 24 hours of that, when I took off to on my own, sort of in the city again, but it's on my own, I was just like exhausted. Love them to death, but and wouldn't trade it for the world, spending time with them. But when you're used to being out in nature, enjoying solitude and peace and quiet, any kind of heavy social interactions are kind of an adjustment, and definitely any kind of the hustle and bustle of the city. Just boy, it's too much. It stresses me out. So yeah, I definitely miss being out in nature. So it's kind of a balancing act for me that I just have to do, because both are very important to me. So Deborah Shaw asks, my question is about summers. I see most people head to the lower desert for the winter, but where in the summer can you find cool weather? With lung conditions, temperate weather is a big plus. Ideal best on days between 60 and 85. People often think, you know, going north is cooler and south is hotter, and there's something to that, especially in the wintertime, that there is something to that. But what's more reliable and what's more consistent is elevation changes. So if you're in the desert in the, you know, let's say around Quartzsite or Ehrenberg or Phoenix or anywhere down there in southern Arizona or southern California, so you're in the desert in the winter, and then as the temperatures start warming up, and they do pretty quickly in the springtime. If you head to higher elevations, you knock down the temperature usually several degrees per 1,000 feet of elevation you gain. So moving up to Sedona, for example, from Ehrenberg or Quartzsite or Phoenix is going to be cooler than in the desert. And then moving from Sedona to Flagstaff, as it begins warming up in Sedona, will knock the temperature down again. Of course, that works in reverse come fall, too. Last fall, for instance, we were camped in Flagstaff, and it was getting pretty cold. And really cold at night, like down into the 20s. And then in the daytime, it was nice enough midday, but it was taking longer and longer to get to that nice weather, so it was, you know, getting kind of uncomfortably cold. So we went 30 or 40 miles down to Sedona, and it was like a whole different world. In terms of the temperatures were, you know, 20 degrees warmer, and the nights were warmer, and it was just a lot more comfortable. So continuing on from there, Flagstaff's a little over 7,000 feet. A lot of people go up into Colorado, for instance, in the wet mountains in western Colorado. We camped some last year outside of a little town of Leadville, which is a little over 10,000 feet, and it's summertime there. Temperatures are typically in, like, you know, low 70s, mid 70s maybe, rarely hotter than that, but it's above 10,000 feet. So the couple caveats there. It is a little busy around there, so you have to hunt to find a quiet camp spot if that's a concern. Also, the air is very thin above 10,000 feet, so that may or may not cause some concerns for anybody with any kind of respiratory issues. I know I'm healthy as far as that goes, and it took me a while to acclimate. Just walking around on an easy, flat walk when I got there would, like, leave me feeling a little short of breath. But I went up there in a day from Arizona, or from southern Colorado. We stopped once in southern Colorado. So, yeah, so that's, but generally, you know, elevation changes are going to give you more bang for your buck than going north or south. RT asks, great video, and my question to you is, have you always been what appears to be a relaxed, laid-back kind of guy? Is your gentle spirit that keeps me coming back? Well, first of all, thank you. I'm kind of a chill, I suppose. I'd be lying if I said I never dealt with some anxiety and stress. But as I age, I'm working on learning to smooth that out, suddenly, as I hopefully have fewer of those, you know, episodes where I'm really stressed out and not so laid back. Actually, I'm a lot more laid back spending time out in nature than I am if I'm spending a lot of time in the city. I tend to get overwhelmed with the bombardment of noise and just activity and chaos and what have you. So this definitely helps me. This lifestyle, you know, boondocking and spending time in nature helps me stay more relaxed and chill, which is something I'm happy about. But I think short of excessive stress and stimulation making me kind of cranked up, I think my default is kind of relaxed. So I would say that's probably true. So Joyce Barnett asks, how soon will you be leaving Wyoming? Where to next? Well, my plan is to more or less spend the summer there, or at least based there. I'll do some traveling from there, and I'll probably handle that a little differently next year. But basically, I have some grandkids there, and some kids there. So the idea is to spend a base there for the summer, and then you know, do some exploration around there, and then in the fall, probably in September, maybe as late as the 1st of October, I'll head out of there, depending on weather. Last year we cut out right about mid-September. It was starting to get more unpleasant weather. I mean, there was nice stuff coming again afterwards, but it was starting to become more common to get rain and cold weather, so we decided to head out. Default is back to Arizona area for winter. There is a chance, if I can do it, I'll do a trip to the Northeast this fall. I have family out there that you know, and by this fall it'll be 2 years since I've been there, so it's time to. I try to do it every year to make it back, and it didn't happen last year. So make that trip, and fall is my favorite time to visit out there. The weather's kind of cooling down. It's not the hot and humid, yucky stuff of summer, and you get the foliage, but it's also early enough you're not getting winter weather. So it's kind of my favorite time to do that trip. So that may happen this fall, but even if it does, I'll be back to Arizona after that. So I really like Arizona, the diversity of the landscapes. So a lot of different terrain and geography, so I enjoy that. But it's also pleasant being able to be outdoors almost every day, year-round, by doing this, which is a big deal for me. And it's good for my health, being in Arizona. So it benefits me a lot, health, physically and mentally. So definitely plan on spending my winters in the Southwest desert around the Arizona area again this year. As Wendy Williams asks, I'd like to get a Toyota Sienna eventually, which should be just right for me. So I have tons of questions for you, but here are just a couple. I imagine flat tires would be a problem, especially on BLM land. So how did you deal with that? Fix a flat or AAA membership or change your own tire? Next, how do you meet fellow friendly nomads, especially to camp near when you're just starting out, for a feeling of security? Okay. The Toyota Sienna is supposed to be a great van, so actually anything by Toyota is pretty good usually, so you probably can't go wrong with that. Living out of a minivan now, the only thing I think it's a good deal for if you're a minimalist or willing to become a minimalist. You definitely have some limited space, but you got stealth, easy to drive, you know, better gas mileage, so there's some definite advantages to it. In general, you're a little bit limited in terms of like a bed, how big of a bed you can put in, or what your orientation is, and cooking arrangements. And so you're a little bit limited in what you can do just because of the lack of limited space. But if you can make that work, if you can live lightly that way, it's a good deal. So I definitely, and a Toyota would definitely be a great way to go with that. As far as flat tires, so far, knock on wood here, I've only had one, and that was actually on BLM land in Quartzsite. For what it's worth, those tires, those on the back, and those back tires were pretty, well, they were past worn out. They were definitely due to be replaced, so that might not have helped. And at the time it happened, I was driving on it was up near where the RTR is held, actually. And I turned down, and that road had been great. It was not wonderful, but it had been, it's passable, you know, it's just rocky and a little rough, but it's definitely passable. Just take your time, you know. But I was up past there, further out, and turned onto what looked like another normal road, and it deteriorated really quickly. um, and somewhere out there, anyways, I put a rock through the tire. So I'm probably fortunate it hasn't happened to me more. As far as basically maintaining good quality tires and replacing when they're worn out is obviously a good start. Because if they're bald, it's a little more likely to have problems. The time it happened to me, I just changed it out with a spare and lived in a town. And then, of course, it was a Toyota Camry, and it had some less than common tires, so I had to order tires and wait for them to come in anyways because they didn't have them in stock. A lot of people do use like AAA memberships or something to get tires changed. Fix-a-flat can be helpful depending on, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. How's that? Depending on the kind of puncture. And the thing to keep in mind with Fix-a-Flat is that it usually is only going to inflate you to maybe around 20 pounds or so. So you're still going to need to top that off. That'll get you a few miles down the road if you're careful, but you don't want to be driving very far like that. So it's a good idea to carry a small 12-volt compressor of reasonably reliable quality. It doesn't have to be super fancy, but something that hopefully will at least work. And yeah, you plug them into your cigarette lighter, connect them to your battery, and inflate a tire. They take a little while. They're not like, using a high-powered compressor, but they will inflate your tire up. If you're running some truck tires are really high pressure these days, and so that's something to keep in mind if you're buying a compressor to air up your tires. Otherwise, some people do make their own tire repairs. I have done it in the past. I don't have the stuff to do it these days. My kids who have worked in the wildland firefighting and in up in the oil fields in North Montana and North Dakota, they routinely, part of their job, they routinely had to repair tires in the field because it just a de facto life up in some of the places they had to drive. So that's an option. But if you want to get into that, you probably would want to make sure you're comfortable with how to do it, and you still have to have a compressor of some sort to reinflate the tire afterwards. So for most people, I would say it's probably going to come down to just trying to be careful, a little bit careful where you're driving, watch out for what you're driving on, keep your tires in decent shape and properly inflated, and carry a can of Fix-a-Flat. It doesn't hurt to try. If you do get a flat in the middle of nowhere, it could be easier than trying to change a tire, and then you can get it looked at when you get back to town. And definitely carry a compressor. It's getting to where it's surprisingly difficult to find functioning air pumps even in cities, and when you get out some of these rural areas, it's not uncommon to find a town where they don't have a functioning air pump available. So, and you might be many miles from. So even if your tire is just a little low and you realize it's low and you got to inflate it, you may still need to you may still need to rely on that compressor you've got with you to pump it up. So, but as long as you're kind of careful, it's not. I'm one in a year and a half full time. I know people who go places worse than I do that maybe have had a rate of, a couple a year, but it's not like a every week thing. At least for me. I mean, there's some places I've seen people drive that I'm sure they do get a lot more flats than I do, but sticking to something that resembles roads, As far as, let's see, how you meeting fellow friendly nomads. If you're starting out in wintertime and you're going to be in the desert, if you're going to be in January, I definitely recommend you go to the RTR in Quartzsite, because there will be hundreds of friendly fellow nomads, and more than likely you'll meet up with some people who are going to be traveling a short distance, and you can follow along and get to know people. I didn't catch the RTR when I first got on the road, but I did enter the summer RTR, which is when I started meeting people, right before the summer RTR and then during it, and that kind of turned things for me in terms of social experience. I'm a little bit of since I'm an introvert, I don't generally just walk up to strangers you know, so that kind of an environment makes it easy to meet people. If you're going to be in the southwest Arizona desert anytime during winter, if you start visiting anywhere around Corset or Ehrenberg, you're definitely going to meet a lot of people. Then beyond that, if you're not in those places at that time, or you know, if you just want to kind of pre-qualify, there are some Facebook groups for that. I just don't know that I can recommend them for trying to meet people, because I've seen a real mixed bag in most of those groups. But what I always recommend to people is the cheap RV living forums. You can get that's the Bob Wells with Cheap RV Living. He runs those. You can go to cheaprvliving.com/forums, and there those forums are actually there are people from international on there, but they are moderated, so which much better than some of the Facebook groups are, and so they keep out the a lot of the foolishness, and the people on there are generally helpful, and it's a lot of people use that to, when they're new on the road, not only to get information and tips and tricks and whatnot, but also to meet up with people, or to figure out where some friendly people who are well known and respected in the community are going to be hanging out, so they can kind of meet people. So that's a real good resource as well. But definitely, if you can plan it to be, you're new on the road, you can plan it to be in, you know, southwest Arizona during winter, you can definitely meet a lot of people, and a lot of those people will scatter to different places in the summer. Some will stay in Arizona, others go, you know, across the country for visit family, or for seasonal jobs, or to just pursue some interest, but some will stay around too, and so you may be able to find people you can even travel with, you know, throughout the summer while you get used to things. Okay, and Dreaming Mimi asks, food for thought on what type of vehicle to get. Okay, this one I'm going to actually tackle within the next week or two as a whole separate video, because this one's probably long enough already, and that can get into a there's a lot to unpack with a question like that. So, but for everybody who left questions, I appreciate your questions, and hopefully this answered them. I think at this point I'm going to plan on doing a Q&A video like this once a month. We'll shoot for the first week of each month. If the questions get to the point I can't catch up, then, you know, maybe we'll do it more frequently. But for now, we'll try once a month. And so if you have more questions you'd like me to address, go ahead and leave them in the comments here, and I will get them in the first week of June. So hopefully this was entertaining and informative for you. You're getting to pick my brain a little bit, for whatever that's worth. But I enjoyed it, so it's fun and for me. And so go ahead and leave some questions below, and we'll get to them in a month again when we do the third Q&A video. Meanwhile, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.